Hey everyone, this is your Feather Dragon VTuber here, Polyblue. We're gonna read Mr. Widemouth. Please enjoy the show. During my childhood, my family was like a drop of water in a vast river, never remaining in one location for long. We settled in Arad Island when I was 8, and there was I remained until I went to college in Colorado Springs. Most of my memories was rooted in Arad Island, but there was a fragment in the attic of my brain which belonged to the various homes we have lived in when I was much younger. Most of those memories are unclear and pointless, chasing after another boy in the backyard of the house in North Carolina, trying to build a raft to float in the creek behind the apartment we rented in Pennsylvania, and so on. But there was one set of memories which remains as clear as glass, although they were just made yesterday. I often wonder whether those memories were simply a lucid dream produced by the long sickness I experienced that spring. But in my heart, I know they were real. We're living in a house just outside the bustling metropolis of New Vineyards, Maine, population 643. It was a large structure, especially for a family of 3. It was the number of rooms that I did not see in the 5 months we were resided there. In some ways, it was a waste of space, but it was the only house in the market in the time, at least within an hour's commute to my father's place of work. The day after my 5th birthday, attended by my parents alone, I came down with a fever. The doctor says I have monocoloniosis, which meant no rough play, and more fever for at least another 3 weeks. It was horrible timing to be bedridden. We were in the process of packing our things to move to Pennsylvania, and most of my things were already packed away in boxes, leaving my room barren. My mother brought me ginger oil and books several times a day. Those served as a function of being my primary forms of entertainment for the next few weeks. Boredom always loomed around the corner, waiting its rear its ugly head and compound my misery. I didn't exactly recall how I met Mr. Widemouth. I think it was about a week after I was diagnosed with mono. My first memory of a small creature was asking him if he had a name. He told me to call him Mr. Widemouth because his mouth was so large. In fact, everything about him was large in comparison of his body. His head, his eyes, his crooked ears, but his mouth was far the largest. You look kind of like a Furby, I said as he flipped through one of my books. Mr. Widemouth stopped and gave me a puzzled look. Furby? What's a Furby? He asked. I shrugged. You know, the toy, the little robot with the big ears. You can pet and feed them. Almost like a real pet. Oh! Mr. Widemouth resumed his activities. You don't need one of those. They aren't the same as having a real friend. I remember Mr. Widemouth disappearing every time my mother stopped by checking in. I remember Mr. Widemouth disappearing every time my mother stopped by to check in on me. I lie under your bed, as later explained. I don't want your parents to see me because I'm afraid they won't let us play anymore. I didn't do much during those first few days. Mr. Widemouth just looked at my books, fascinated by the stories and pictures. They continued the 3rd or 4th morning after I met him. He greeted me with a large smile on his face. I have a new game we could play, he said. We just have to wait until your mother comes to check on you, because she can't see us play it. It's a secret game. After my mother delivered more books and soda at the usual time, Mr. Widemouth slipped out from under the beds and tugged my hands. "We should go to the room at the end of the hallway," he said. I objected at first, as my parents had forbidden me to leave my bed without their permission, but Mr. Widemouth persisted after I gave in. The room in question had no furniture or wallpaper. Its only distinguishing features was a window opposite the doorway. Mr. Widemouth darted across the room and gave the window a firm push, fledging it open. He then beckoned me to look out the window. Look at the ground below. We were on the second story of the house, but it was on a hill, and from this angle, the drop was further than 2 stories due to the incline. "I like to play pretend up here," Mr. Widemouth explained. "I pretend there was a big soft trampoline below this window, and I jump. If you pretend hard enough, you'll bounce back up like a feather. I want you to try." I was a 5-year-old with a fever, so only a hint of skepticism darted through my thoughts as I looked down and considered the possibilities. "It's a long drop," I said. "But that's the part of the fun. It wouldn't be fun if it was only a short drop. It would be that way. You might as well be bouncing on a real trampoline." I toyed the idea of picturing myself falling through the thin air only to be bounced back on the window on something unseen by human eyes. But the realist in me prevailed. "Maybe some other time," I said. "I don't think I have enough imagination. I could get hurt." Mr. Widemouth's face contorted into a snarl, but only for a moment. Anger gave way to disappointment. "If you say so," he said. He spent the rest of the day under my bed, quiet as a mouse. The following morning, Mr. Widemouth arrived holding a small box. "I want to teach you how to juggle," he said. "Here's some things you can use to practice before I start giving you lessons." I looked at the box. It was full of knives. "My parents would kill me," I shouted, horrified that Mr. Widemouth had brought knives into my room. Objects that my parents would never allow me to touch. "I'll be spanked and grounded for a year." Mr. Widemouth frowned. "It's fun to juggle with those. I want you to try it." I pushed the box away. "I can't. I'll get in trouble. Knives aren't safe for just to throw in the air." Mr. Widemouth was waiting for me. "I have something I want you to see," he said. I must have given him a weird look because he then said, "It's safe, I promise." I followed him to the beginning of the deer trail, which ran through the woods behind the house. "This is an important path," he explained. "I had lots of friends about your age. When they were ready, I took them down this path to a special place. You aren't ready yet, but one day I hope to take you there." I returned to the house wondering what kind of place lay beyond the trail. 2 weeks after I met Mr. Widemouth, the last load of our things had been packed into the moving truck. I would be then in the cab of the truck, sitting next to my father for a long drive of Pennsylvania. I considered telling my Mr. Widemouth that I would be leaving, but then, even at 5 years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps the creature's intentions was not to my benefit, despite what he said otherwise. For this reason, I decided to keep my departure a secret. My father and I were in a truck at 4 a.m. He was hoping to make it to Pennsylvania by lunchtime tomorrow. With the help of the endless supply of coffee with a six-pack of energy drinks, he seems more like a man who was about to run a marathon rather than one who was about to spend 2 days sitting still. Early enough for you? My father asked with a hint of sympathy. I nodded and placed my head against the window, hoping for some sleep before the sun came up. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. This is the last move, son, I promise. I know it's hard for you, as sick as you would have been. Once Daddy gets promoted, we can settle down and you can make friends. I opened my eyes as we backed out into the driveway. I saw Mr. Widemouth silhouette in the bedroom window. He stood motionless until the truck was about to turn into the main road. He gave a pitiful little wave goodbye, stick at hand. I did not wave back. Years later, I returned to the new vineyard. The piece of land our house stood upon was empty except for the foundation, as the house burned down a few years after my family left. Out of curiosity, I followed the deer trail that Mr. Widemouth had shown me. Part of me expected him to jump out from behind the tree to scare the living bejeebus out of me, and I felt that Mr. Widemouth was gone, somehow tied to the house that no longer exists. The trail ended to the new vineyard's memory cemetery. I noticed that many of the tombstones belonged to children. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the story of Mr. Widemouth. I enjoyed it myself. Please, as always, like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And I'll be soon having a Patreon and a merch store soon, so be on the lookout for that. And I'll be getting a new high-end PC as well on December 1st. But for right now, I'm stuck with this potato of a laptop, but I guess that's fine as well, as long as it doesn't crash on me every time I try to make a video. But besides the point, thank you for watching this video. See you later. Have a nice day.